Praise the Lord. Thank you once again for listening in to these teachings. Like we said, we are doing the book of Esther and we are looking at the possible revelations we can see at this moment. And we're not going into everything, but mainly trying to show you the shadows that this book represents. And we seek to emphasize that this book does not only talk about a beauty contest and marriage. It has more. It shadows the Christ and his mission for the church. And so we have reached chapter 8 and we shall get right into it. It says, on that day, King Ahasuerus gave Queen Esther the house of Haman, the enemy of the Jews. And Mordecai came before the king, for Esther had told how he was related to her. So remember, Esther had hid her identity on the instruction of Mordecai. Mordecai had told her, do not reveal your identity. Do not reveal who you are, from what tribe you are. Okay? And so she hid her identity. Just like we said also, Christ had hidden his identity and not revealed who he was. Okay? And now at this point, Esther revealed who she was when she was trying to show the king what Haman had tried to do, that is, eliminate and kill all the Jews. All right? So, after revealing who she was, it was clear that now she was saying, I'm also related to Mordecai. I'm his cousin, okay? Like his young cousin. All right? So the king saw the connection, and remember, Mordecai had also helped save the king's life when two servants had desired to end the king's life. Okay, so the king is grateful to Mordecai, but is also happy to have protected his queen against the evil plan of Haman. And now the house of Haman has been given to Queen Esther. Okay, and now she has power over it. This is what the king has done. He has gotten the house. And when we say the house, even the authority of that house, that's what it means here. Not just a house, a building, all right? But even the authority of Haman was now given to who? To Queen Esther. And she reveals herself to the king now that he knows her. She also defines that Mordecai is my cousin. And now the king knows who they truly are. So the king took off his signet ring, which he had taken from Haman, and gave it to Mordecai. Okay. Now, knowing the connection between the two, that you're even related, your cousins, and the king loves his queen. Okay. And he has done everything possible to defend her and protect her life by eliminating the man who sought to end their lives. Okay. And we have said that Haman represented the devil. Right? And we are going to see more of this and explain even more as we continue. So it says in verse 2, so the king took off his signet ring, which he had taken from Haman. Remember, originally he had given it to Haman, and Haman had used it to draw up that evil scheme, that law that he had put in place, that on a certain date in the 12th month, they were going to kill all the Jews. Okay, and the Jews were not allowed to defend themselves. They were just going to be killed like lambs. Okay, that was the plan of Haman. So he had used that ring, and you know, when you put that ring of the king, the signet ring of the king, you have put the mark of the king. You've said the king has stamped this. The king has permitted this. That's what it means for you to put the mark of the signet ring of the king. So the king got it from Haman before Haman was hanged, and then he gave it to Mordecai. And Esther appointed Mordecai over the house of Haman. So now the house of Haman, the power of a man Haman had been given to her, and now she also appoints Mordecai and appoints him over the house of Haman. Not just a house, a physical house, but also the power that that man had. Okay. Also, the ring that was given to Haman now has been transferred and given to Mordecai. So, verse 3, now Esther spoke again to the king and fell at his feet and implored him with tears to counteract the evil of Haman the Agagite and the scheme which he had devised against the Jews. Now she's saying, okay, king, thank you for killing Haman. Thank you very much. The enemy has been defeated. However, he has left a certain law which he wrote using your signet ring in action. And in the 12th month, my people are going to be killed. Can you do something to turn it around? That's what she's crying for. All right. And the king held out his golden scepter toward Esther, which means I've accepted you in my presence. Okay. So Esther arose and stood before the king and said, if it pleases the king, and if I have found favor in his sight, and the thing seems right to the king, and I am pleasing in his eyes, let it be written, to revoke the letters devised by Haman, the son of Hammedatha, the Agagite, which he wrote to annihilate the Jews who are in the king's provinces. Okay? So she wants this thing reversed. For how can I endure to see the evil that will come to my people? Or how can I endure to see the destruction of my countrymen? So now I want you to see something here. Jesus defeated the devil at the cross. Okay? The devil is defeated. We have read about him in Colossians that the devil was brought to shame. He was paraded like a defeated foe. We know this. But now there is something that was set and it was still ongoing, that man was to be destroyed. The devil has been defeated. The price has been paid. Jesus has paid the price on the cross. The devil is defeated. Okay? But still, man will be destroyed unless what? Unless man accepts the sacrifice that Jesus had made. And we are going to see how that is exemplified in the story of Esther. Because you see, we had no chance. The law was set in stone. We had failed to keep it. The demand was, if you fail to honor the law, you should die. We were meant to die. There was no chance for us. And the devil was laughing and just waiting for our destruction, just like Haman was just waiting and counting days and months, waiting for the destruction of the Jews, because they were not going to be allowed to defend themselves. They were supposed to be just killed. There was no way out. But through what Esther did, she was able to, first of all, eliminate the enemy, and that is Haman. But that wasn't enough because the law was still there. And so they needed an option. They needed something to defend them from the law. I want you to know that even in our time, Jesus died, yes. Jesus paid the price because the law demanded that man should die. So Jesus died in our place. But most people say that the law is now no longer there, but it is there. And the law we are talking about here that is no longer something we should honor is the 613 laws. Those ones we shouldn't honor. They were never even meant for us, you see. But the 10 commandments still exist. You know why? Because God has never changed his mind about them. Think about it. Do you think that now because Jesus died, God is okay with you worshiping other gods? Do you think that now because Jesus died, God is okay with you accusing another person falsely? Do you think that now because Jesus died, God is okay with you committing adultery? With you being covetous? With you creating idols? Do you think he's okay with you disrespecting your parents? No, of course not. And so the 10 commandments, Jesus summarizes them into two. He says, love the Lord your God, because the first 4 commandments are written unto the Lord. Okay? How you relate with God. And then the next 6 commandments are written for how you relate with man. Even Paul writes about this and says, if you walk in love, you have kept all the commands. Okay? If you walk in love towards God and walk in love towards men, you have kept all the commandments. And not walking in love the way man understands love, but walking in love according to how God describes love. The way man understands love is different from how God sees love. So we look at love the biblical way. 1 Corinthians 13. Not the way the world has defined for us love. Okay? The world does not understand the thing it sings about the most. Love is the most sung about, the most written about, the most spoken of, but people don't understand it. And so God takes the time to define it for you in the book of 1 Corinthians chapter 13. So you can go there and read and understand. So I want you to know that now, just like Esther, she has defeated the enemy, Haman, he has been killed, but the law is still there, and it is still going to determine the death of the Jews on a certain date, and they will not be allowed to defend themselves. In the same way, Jesus died on the cross, served the punishment. The cup was full. The cup of the wrath of God was full, and it was going to fall onto us. It was going to be poured out onto us, and we would die. But Jesus drank this cup. You remember in the garden where he said, if it were possible, take this cup of suffering away from me. But let not my will be done, but yours. And the will of God was that Jesus drinks that cup. So Jesus drank the cup of the wrath of God. But since then, we have been filling other cups, okay? Because sin has never stopped. People continue to sin. And as long as sin exists, destruction, judgment must come. So we needed a way out, and Jesus provides that alternative. As we continue to read, we shall see that also Esther provided an alternative. So she didn't stop at just defeating the enemy, just like Jesus didn't stop at just defeating the devil. He provided an alternative. And we're also going to see what alternative did Esther provide so that the Jews would survive. All right? So it continues in verse 6. For how can I endure to see the evil that will come to my people, or how can I endure to see the destruction of my countrymen? Then verse 7, then King Ahasuerus said to Queen Esther and Mordecai the Jew, indeed, I have given Esther the house of Haman, and they have hanged him on the gallows, because he tried to lay hands on the Jews. You yourselves write a decree concerning the Jews as you please in the king's name, and seal it with the king's signet ring. For whatever is written in the king's name and sealed with the king's signet ring, no one can revoke. Okay, now this means two things. What he's trying to tell them here, Esther is saying if there was something that could counteract what was written before. You see, the first law that Haman put out, and it was saying that all the Jews were to be killed on a certain date of the 12th month. Once the king's signet ring is put onto something and it is sent out as law, it cannot be revoked. Okay? We know, I think it is in Psalms 138, where it says that the Lord has put his word above his own name. God is bound by his own word, that if he has said something, he must follow it himself. So the law here, as the king is telling them, that once I have said something and put my signet ring on it, it is a law, it cannot be revoked. Okay? I can't say that now I've removed it. No, it can't be removed. So he's saying once something has gone out and it has my signet ring stamp, it cannot be revoked. And so you yourselves have to come up with a way to see something that will work alongside that to counter that. But the other one cannot be removed. It's written, it is said. Just like when God says that the soul that sins must die. That is law. There's no two ways about it. Even if Jesus died on the cross, still the soul that sins must die. And what this means is if you choose to live a sinful lifestyle, you will die. And what we mean by that, not dying physically alone, but you will also die spiritually. For in the book of 1 John, it says that he that practices unrighteousness is of the unrighteous one, and he that practices righteousness is of the righteous one. So if you walk in righteousness, then clearly you're of the righteous one. And if you walk in wickedness, you are of the wicked one. So whatever you practice determines your destination, because it determines who you are inside. Okay? You cannot say you were a boy, yet you behave like a girl. We shall doubt if you're really a boy. You can't say you were a dog, yet you bleat like a sheep. You can't say you were a sheep, yet you bark like a dog. We shall start questioning whether you're really a dog. We shall start to check and see if indeed you're a dog or if indeed you're a sheep. So this is what it is, that the soul that sins, the soul that lives in sin, if you choose a sinful lifestyle, you want to live in sin, you cannot say again you're born again, because born agains live like the nature of which they have been reborn into, which is the nature of righteousness. Because they're righteous inside, every day they purpose to live righteously. Okay? Will they do some wrongs? Yes. But is their purpose to do right? Yes. They are purposing to do right. They are purposing to live right. That's their mind. Okay? They don't get up planning evil every day. No. Righteous people plan righteous things. They don't plan wickedness all the time. So you cannot say you're the righteousness of God by faith in Christ Jesus, yet every day you're plotting evil. You're lying. You need to check and see of which nature you have inside you. Okay? So much as Jesus defeated the devil, just like Esther defeated Haman. Haman is gone. The devil's power has been taken away also. The law is still there. If you live this way, you will go where the wicked one is. If you live that way, you'll go where the righteous one is. It is simple. It still exists. Okay? And so what is the way out? So Esther has to come up with a way, because the word of the Lord will not be removed. It will remain. That's why Jesus says, I've not come to remove the law, but to fulfill it. And he fulfilled it in many ways. Okay? He fulfilled it, first of all, by living by it. Jesus never broke God's law. He never broke God's law. He never worshipped other gods. He never accused anyone falsely. He never committed adultery. He never coveted anyone's wife. He lived according to the law. He kept it. That's one way. And then the other way, what did the Lord demand? He demanded that man has sinned, they must die. So Jesus gave it what it demanded. That was blood. So he fulfilled it. okay, and whatever it demanded, he fulfilled it. All right, but did it remove the law now that the law doesn't exist anymore? I've told you not. Indeed, the scriptures say that the Lord has what? Put that law now in our hearts and also put it in our minds. And he has written it in our hearts and put it in our minds, and written it in our minds and put it in our hearts. Now we carry it as believers. You just have the law of God. You may not know all the 10 commandments even, but for some reason, you don't want to kill, you don't want to commit adultery, you don't want to worship other gods. When you try to do those things, you feel it's not of your nature. You feel, no, I shouldn't be doing that. Yet no one has put those laws on your wall. You're not seeing those laws anywhere pinned on your wall, but they are in your heart and they are in your mind. They are in your nature. They are inscribed in your heart, inside you.